right? A little bit late, but that's okay. Barter systems are the exchange of goods without the use of money. So it's kind of like you're trading. The example that I always come back to with this is electricians and plumbers. So if you have a plumber that's having some trouble with the electrical system in this house, or you have an electrician who's having trouble with his plumbing, they can swap services without having to exchange any type of money. So the electrician can go to the plumber's house and do some work for him. The plumber can go to the electrician's house and do some work for him. And it works out very well. Gift economies are, think about a gift. When you give somebody a gift, you're not expecting anything in return. So a gift economy is when goods and services are exchanged without the expectation of any return. So I guess I really shouldn't even use the word exchanged. It's really when you give a good or service and then you don't expect for anything to be returned. So yes, like a random act of kindness. So it would be kind of like if the electrician had a plugged up sink, the plumber could come over and fix his sink, but he wouldn't expect for the electrician to come back and do any work for him. That would be a gift economy. Now the Babylonians used the shekel, or they used a specific amount of grain as a monetary commodity. Now we use money today. We've got paper money, we've got coin money. That's our monetary commodity. But the Babylonians used a shekel. It was similar to this. Or they would just measure out a certain amount of grain, and they could swap that for whatever good or service they needed. Okay? Give me a smiley if all that makes sense. All right. Now, if you guys ever have any questions, type it down in the chat box. Ms. Goldstein will get those for you, or you can raise your hand. There's a little hand thing in there, or you can do a little confused face, and that'll let us know that you have a question. So we've got two types of economic systems. Remember, an economic system is how things are produced, distributed, and consumed. We've got a market economy. That was the first one that we learned about. This is where prices are determined through a free system. The other type of economy that we learned about in Module 1 is a planned economy. And this is where prices are determined by the government. We have one that's a free system. People get to choose their own prices. And then we've got another one that's a planned economy, and this is where the government chooses the prices. Okay, we're going to learn a little bit more about that. In a market economy, prices are determined through a free system, just like I said. This operates on the principle of supply and demand. So the more demand there is for a product and the less supply there is, a lot of times the cost of the product is going to go up. If there's a whole lot of something and very few people want it, chances are the price on that's going to drop. Okay, we also have a pure market economy. And in a pure market economy, this is free enterprise and there's no government involvement at all. Okay, so you've got a market economy, which we're going to learn in a minute, has limited government involvement, but then we have a pure market economy that has no government involvement. Well, here we have the capitalist economy. This is what we're the most familiar with because this is what we're using in the U.S. And the capitalist economy is characterized as privately owned businesses that are engaged in making a profit. Look around at the different businesses. Hey, Kenya. Look around at the different businesses around us, and you'll see, what are they there for? They are there to make a profit. Walmart, Kmart, Home Depot, you go to the mall, all those stores in the mall, they're there because they want to make a profit. And so that's what capitalism is characterized by. So there's three aspects of capitalism. There's capital, which is the goods or tools used to make products. There's labor, that's the human ability to produce the products. And then there's resources, and these are things that, that exist to create the products. So we've got capital, could be like your tools, sewing machines for somebody who is sewing something. Labor would be the person who's actually doing it. Resources could be like trees, different things like that. Okay, we do have government involvement in this economy. One of the things that we have are antitrust suits. We have these things called monopolies. And monopolies are where one company owns pretty much they just kind of have the whole, they have the hand in how do I explain it? It's they control the whole market for a certain thing. Years and years and years ago, you didn't have like several different phone companies to go to. Yes, a lot of times, like Ms. Goldstein said, they'll buy up a lot of the smaller businesses. But Ms. Goldstein might remember this because we're older. Years ago, we didn't have a number of phone companies to go to. We had, I think it was Bell South. I can't remember what the name, was it Bell South? I can't remember what the name, yeah. And they were the only phone company that you could go to. They could charge whatever they wanted to because you didn't have anywhere else to go. That was the only phone company you could go to. Now we have antitrust suits. These break up the monopolies. So now you look at all the different phone companies, and what do? They compete. They try to make their service the best, and they try to keep their prices the lowest so that you want to go to them. We have the choice who we want to go to. We're not going to pick a company that has bad service and high prices. So these companies are going to compete to keep their prices down and give you the best service they can. All right. We also have regulatory bodies such as OSHA. OSHA oversees safety in the workplace. You don't want to go work someplace where you're going to be exposed to chemicals and later on you're going to be very ill. So we have regulatory bodies. We have organizations that oversee these type of things to make sure that everybody is treated fairly and that everybody is protected. With market economies, here's the characteristics that we have, just like we had already talked about. We've got economic freedom. This means that the company makes their own choices. They decide what they're going to sell. They decide what they're going to price it. They get to choose what they want to choose. There's competition, like I said, with the phone companies. They're going to compete for quality and prices. Usually when I think of competition, I think about, I know Kmart is really on its way out, but I always think of Kmart and Walmart. In my area, the Kmart and the Walmart were like literally about 10 yards away from each other until Kmart went out of business. But I would go into one and see what they were going to charge for something, then I'd run down the street and go to the other one and see what they were going to charge because I was going to get it for the best price. So they do compete for quality and prices. There's economic incentives. These are the good and bad consequences for whatever choices the company decides to make. We have limited government influence, and this means that the government does play a small role in the economy. We're not completely left on our own with no government involvement. There's a small role that the government plays. And then it's private ownership. This means that individuals own the businesses. Okay, we say individuals. It doesn't mean like one person owns. You know, we do have a lot of companies that one person owns, but sometimes it's more of like a panel of people that will own it. But it's not the government that owns it. Okay, and corporations exactly. Then we have pure market economies. Okay, they have a lot of the other characteristics, but the one characteristic that is different with a pure market economy is that instead of having limited government influence, there's no government involvement. We call that laissez-faire, and that means to let it be. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Go ahead and give me a smiley, or you can ask a question in the chat box. All right, I love seeing the smileys. Okay. Now on the other end, we just went over market economies, now we've got planned economies. With planned economies, this is where the prices of goods and services are determined by the government or state, okay? A type of planned economy would be a socialist economy. And this is where the government is the central authority guiding the economy and controlling or owning many of the businesses, okay? So rather than a corporation or an individual owning a business like Walmart, Kmart, Home Depot, Chick-fil-A, love Chick-fil-A. Instead, it would be the government that would own these businesses. Instead of engaging, and I especially like them on Sunday when I can't get there. All right. One of the what was I going to say? See, I got sidetracked because I'm hungry. Now I want Chick-fil-A. Goods and services are produced to satisfy the needs of the citizens, not for profit. Okay, we talked about it in a capitalist economy, those or in a market economy, the companies, they exist to make a profit. Walmart exists to make a profit, but in a socialist economy, that is not the case. These goods and services are produced and sold in order to satisfy the needs of the citizens. Okay? Any questions about that? All right, so what is my role in the economy? Let's see, you're going to start off by working, okay? You work to get paid, all right? We're always happy like this when we get paid. There's two things that happen when you get paid. Actually, right before you get paid. Some of that money is taken out and it goes to taxes. Yeah, Friday. Some of that money goes to the government for taxes. So when you get your paycheck, there's some of that money is missing. You learned about this more in Module 5 because that money went to the government for taxes. The rest of the money you get in your paycheck, and for the most part what we do is we go out and we buy stuff, okay? So we're spending that money. When we buy stuff, that puts money back into the economy, okay? A little bit of it, I should really have another arrow right here because when we buy stuff, a lot of times we have to pay sales tax on that item that we bought, and that money goes to the government also, okay? But the company that we bought it from makes a profit, and they put that money back into their business to build their business bigger. And yes, it keeps businesses in business because it helps them to pay their employees. And then when they get paid, they buy stuff, and then they go out and they're putting money back into the economy. And then, you know, it just kind of goes in a circle, just like this. So give me a smiley if you think that our role right here is important. Absolutely. We play a very important role. Something as small as buying a pack of gum contributes to the economy. Okay? A lot of times students think that you have to buy something like a car or a house in order to contribute to the economy, but it's everything you purchase. So let me ask you guys a question. You've got your polls up there at the top. You'll see that little A. And I want you to tell me, what type of economy do we use in the U.S.? Do we use a capitalist economy? That would be A. Or B, planned economy, or C, socialist economy. And I know, Takia, you're probably not going to be able to use the polls, but you can type yours down in the chat box if you want to. All right. Let's see. We got 30 people who didn't answer. Probably one of them was me. One was Ms. Goldstein. I don't know who the other one was, but most of you are right. Yes, it is A. We use a capitalist economy here in the U.S. We have limited government involvement. We have those organizations that oversee different things to make sure that everybody is treated fairly and safely. We have privately owned businesses that are engaged in making a profit. All right, so Module 2. Module 2, you learned about your financial status and how things can affect your financial status. Some of the things that will affect your financial status would be your paycheck, good investments. Those are going to make your financial status go up. Every time you get paid, you've got more money. Every time you make a good investment, you've got more money. Things are going up. They're good. Things that could decrease your financial status would be purchases or bad investments. We learned about the 4 categories of limited economic resources. That would be land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial ability. So with land, you've got physical land, of course, but it would also include things like lumber, minerals, oil, different things like that. Okay? We know that as oil is limited, what happens to the price of gas? Does anybody know? What happens to the price of gas when we can't get oil or when the goes up, absolutely. So when this is scarce, the price of something goes up. Okay, labor is going to be the physical and mental work needed to create goods or services, okay? That's the people who are out working in these businesses. Capital would be the tools and the machinery that are used to produce the products. And then entrepreneurial ability, this is the human ability to find resources and make business decisions and to create new products. Now, not everybody can do this. It kind of, you know, only certain people have that ability. So it is a limited resource. We learned about how nothing in life is free. We get those freebies. We hear, you know, we walk into Sam's. My kids love to go to Sam's and get the little, all those little tasty samples and everything, and lunch. And my husband goes to different things, and he gets these little goodie bags, and he gets all these different things like little Frisbees and nail clippers and stuff like that. But they might be free to us, but they're not free for everybody. In order to get a freebie, here's some of the costs that are involved. You've got your resources. That would be, you know, the paper that it costs to print something, or, you know, the food, you know, all the ingredients that went into the food when you go to Sam's. Somebody had to make it, so most likely the company had to pay somebody to make it. A lot of times the cost of these is included in their advertising budget, because it's a lot of times it's a way to lure customers in order to get them to buy something. There's opportunity costs. The money that went into these freebies could have been used for something else. And a lot of times the store has to pay in order to offer these freebies. All right, we also learned about economic policies. Two economic policies that we have are trade policy here, and fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is how the government collects and spends money. Two ways that they can collect money would be bonds and taxes. Bonds, you're going to learn a little bit more about in Module 7, but bonds are things that the government will sell, and they use that money to go toward certain projects and things like that. And it's an investment that people can make. So you would purchase a bond in order to invest in that, and hopefully in the end you would be making more money. Taxes, we all have to, yep, it's just like giving the government a loan, exactly. Taxes are something that at some point we all have to pay. You may not be working right now and paying income tax, but at some point you will have a job and you'll pay income tax. Every time we make a purchase, we pay taxes. We pay property taxes, all kinds of taxes that we learned about in Module 5. And this is how the government collects that money. And then as we learned in Module 5, we learned about all the different things that the government spends that money on also. That's our fiscal policy. Trade policies, this is where we trade products between two different countries. And similar to taxes, these are tariffs, and we charge tariffs on the items that are coming in or going out of the country with trade. All right, fiscal policy. We've got 3 different stances for fiscal policy. We've got the neutral stance. This is balanced. That means that there's the same amount coming in as there is going out. So the government spends as much as they collect. Then we have expansionary, and that means that the government is spending more than they're collecting. Okay? Then we have contractionary, and that means that the government collects more than is spent. So let me ask you this. You can grab some clip art if you want to, or you can type it in the chat box. I'd like for you guys to let me know, which stance do we use in the U.S.? Which one is it? Or not that we use, which is the stance that is associated with the U.S. So you guys can grab some clip art. You can type it in the chat box. Let's see you guys writing. Okay, Tyler thinks it's neutral. Kenya thinks it's expansionary. Alyssa thinks it's expansionary. It looks like we're getting more for expansionary. Brianna says it's expansionary, but it should be neutral. I agree. Neutral or contractionary really seems like it would be the best. But you guys, most of you guys are correct. It is expansionary. You hear all the time about the debt that the U.S. is in, and that's because we spend more than we collect. Okay? All right. We learned about the stock market. We're going to learn a little bit more about the stock market.
Check it out. 1, 2, 1, 2. It's the stock market song. Money, money, I'm Shoeless Jeff. We got Scott Free.
Scott Free.
Jay Delamo on the
Jay
beat.
Delamo.
Everybody, we're the band known as
Who?
Smart Songs. Companies sell stocks so they can raise money. Here's a little story, you might find it funny. I was gonna start a summer job mowing lawns, but I didn't have a lawnmower to go along, and I didn't have the money to buy one myself. I was hoping that somebody would come along and help. Who? Scott, do you think you'd lend me some cash, or I could get a mower to cut lots of grass?
Perhaps I got a few bucks here in my pocket, but if I give them up, I want some of the profit.
You got it. For every dollar that my job earns, I'll give you 25 cents back in return.
Cool.
Scott, you just bought a stock in my company, Jeff's Landscape, Lawn Care, and Shrubbery. Now you'll have a say in how my company spends. I have the ends for the mower, and we're both making dividends. A company is kinda like a building. Stocks are the bricks of the building. 'Cause if you own a brick, you own part of it. Stocks are sold on the stock market. A company is kinda like a pie. A stock is a slice that you buy.
Why?
'Cause if the pie is popular to eat, then the slice is worth more on the street.
Sweet. Now if you buy some stocks, you will own some shares of the companies you pick. But please beware,
Of what?
the market is tricky. Stocks can be risky. Pay a high price and they can drop quickly. Swiftly, sonny, you can lose lots of money. If businesses struggle, it can get ugly. So trust me, it's best to do your research before you spend cash. You should read first.
Okay.
All about the company and of its history. Products and owners should never be a mystery. How much they earn versus how much they owe. It's called net worth, and it's something you should know. But realize prices rise and fall. Be cool, stay in for the long haul. Before you sell shares, stick to your vision to make wise, tested investment decisions.
A company is kinda like a building. Stocks are the bricks of the building. 'Cause if you own a brick, you own part of it. Stocks are sold on the stock market. A company is kinda like a pie. A stock is a slice that you buy.
Why?
'Cause if the pie is popular to eat, then the slice is worth more on the street.
Sweet.
You've been checking the paper, reading the news, perusing the computer, looking to choose a company or two that you think will do well. You see a new shoe brand that's starting to sell, so you call up the guy who buys and sells stocks.
Hello.
Sometimes he'll advise what to buy or not. He's a stockbroker, kinda like poker. He knows all the rules, so he controls the handling of stocks, and you pay him a fee. Nowadays online, buy instantly. Some jobs give you stocks when you get hired, so you'll have a bit of money by the time you retire. Put it in a 401k, save it for someday, 'cause one day when your hair's gray, you're gonna say, hey, I'd like to play golf all day long. So maybe start singing the stock market song. A company is kinda like a building. Stocks are the bricks of the building. 'Cause if you own a brick, you own part of it. Stocks are sold on the stock market. A company is kinda like a pie. A stock is a slice that you buy.
Why?
'Cause if the pie is popular.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay? All right. You're right, Kenya. It's not really free. Somebody had to pay to make that pie. All right. The stock market. The stock market can kind of be a little bit confusing. That's why we like that video. It kind of takes it and simplifies it and explains it. So I really do hope it is stuck in your heads. It'll help you on the exam. All right. So here's some terms to remember about the stock market. The stock market is a place, it's physical or virtual, where stocks or shares in a company are bought and sold. Okay, a stock is a share of ownership in a company. So you buy a stock, you're actually buying a share of ownership in that company. Okay, let's see, open outcry. Ms. Goldstein, it's free to you. Open outcry is a sort of auction for stocks that the traders verbally submit their offers. You see this on TV when you see, this is what I always think of when I think of the stock market. I think of open outcry. You think of them on Walmart, and they're all screaming and yelling, and they're holding papers up, and and they're buy, 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 sell, sell, sell. So that's open outcry. The New York Stock Exchange, that is a specific example. I would be terrified in there. That's a specific example of an open outcry type of stock market. It's a physical location where stocks are bought and sold. Right, NASDAQ is an example of a virtual stock market. So that would be, you hear more often now where people buy and sell their stocks online. Okay, any questions about those? Give me a smiley if that all makes sense. All right, fantastic. So how are we impacted by the stock market? Okay, this is one of the questions that you got in Module 2. With the stock market, as the stock market increases, the value of stocks increases, the market overall is going on an upward trend, people are making money. The people who are investing in the stock market, they are making money. Okay, so their wealth is increasing. The companies that are selling stock, their stock has a greater value, so they're bringing in more money. So they're making more money. Overall, everybody's making more money that's involved in the stock market. Okay, because people are making more money, they're having to pay more taxes because we pay taxes on the income that we receive. So somebody who is a stockholder and they're generating that income off of their stocks, they have to pay taxes on that stock. So so the government is collecting more taxes, and so then the companies that are generating more revenue can put that back into their company, and they're building their companies bigger. So because they're building their companies bigger, they have to hire more people to work for them. So that's increasing the number of jobs. So overall, the economic health is increasing. Well, if the economy is good, doesn't that impact all of us? What do you guys think? Give me a smiley if you think that. If the economy is good, that's good for us, right? Absolutely, Kenya. So as the stock market increases, all these things happen and the economy increases, and we all benefit from that. However, in the opposite direction, we can have the same thing. As the stock market drops, people are losing money, companies are losing money, less taxes are being collected because people are not generating that income. Companies are having to possibly close down or downsize, and people start losing their jobs. And the overall economic health starts to decrease, and that hurts all of us. We saw this big time in 2008. You guys may have been too young for this, but this was a major thing in 2008. So when companies are losing money, they might have to charge more for what they sell to make up for the loss. Absolutely. Yep, and that impacts us because we're having to pay more money. All right, Module 3. Module 3, we learned about financial planning. We learned the different steps for financial planning. The first thing you need to do is you need to analyze your situation. Look at your situation. Do you have money saved up already? Do you have a job? What is your source of income? You have to look at what your situation is and see where you're starting from. Then you want to identify your goals. You have to know what you're working toward. Then you want to start making a plan. You know where you're starting from. You know where you're going to. Let's start making a plan on how to get there. You need to calculate the risks. This was a question from Module 3. It doesn't seem like there would be risks in something like buying a house or buying a car, but there really are a lot of risks, and we're going to talk about that in a couple more slides. Then you start to implement your plan. You're going to put your plan into action. And then finally, you're going to review and revise your plan and your goals. Because as you're going through, this may be years that you're in the process of going through this financial plan, things are going to change. You could lose your job. You could get a better job and have more income. Somebody could give you a car if that's what you were saving for, and now you no longer have to save for that car. So things happen all the time. So you need to constantly look back over your plan, look back over your goals, and you need to revise and adjust. Okay? Any questions about that? Give me a smiley if all that makes sense. All right. We have different, this really shouldn't be the next slide, but we have different resources that we can use to achieve our goal. We all have time. Poor Ms. Goldstein, you guys got to give her some questions. We all have 24 hours in the day. Okay, it's what are you going to do with that time? Okay, some people have, even though we have 24 hours in a day, some people have less time because they have more responsibilities. But we have time as a resource to achieve our goals. We also have money. Again, some people have more than others. And that's something that we can use to achieve our goals. If you want to go to college, you need money to go to college. So is that something that you have? Is it something that you need to earn? And then energy. Energy is the work you're going to put into something. So these are the three resources that we have to achieve our goals. Okay, I said how there are risks involved in financial planning and in achieving our goals. One of the risks that we have is inflation. Inflation is when the cost of things fluctuate, go up or down. Typically they go up. One thing that I think about all the time with this is when I was in high school and I started driving, I would pull into the gas station and I would feel around on the floor of my car until I could come up with some nickels and dimes and maybe a couple quarters if I could find any of those. And that's where I'd get my gas money, off the floor of my car, and I could put like a half a tank of gas in my car for that. Now I couldn't put a gallon of gas in my car with the change on the floor because the cost of gas has gone up. So yep, way less than $1 a gallon. So that was back in the olden days. So inflation is how the prices are typically going to increase. So then you have income. Income is a risk because you may have a job now, but you may not have a job tomorrow. So if your goal is counting on you bringing in $1,000 a week or $2,000 a month to pay for, say, a car loan or something like that, you have the risk that you may lose your job. I always feel old. Then there's the income risk. Interest risk. Sometimes we take out loans that do not have a fixed interest rate. Okay, there are some mortgages where you would not have a fixed interest rate. And so you take out that, yes, it's never a good idea, but sometimes, especially if you don't have good credit, which you'll learn about more in Module 8, that may be the only type of loan that you have available to you. And so, so the interest rate risk is, you may be starting off paying off a loan that has a low interest rate, and then that interest rate starts to increase and increase and increase, and pretty soon you can't afford those payments. The same thing can happen with a credit card. Your interest rate on a credit card could always increase, and oftentimes does. Then you have personal risk. With personal risk, that could be you could get into an accident and break your leg, and then now you can't work. So now you've got, because of this personal risk, now you have an income risk also, because you may lose your job. You could get sick, different things like that. Okay, any questions about those, or does that all make pretty much sense? Give me a smiley if you're good with that. Fantastic, you guys are awesome. All right, here's some tips on making good financial decisions. I love my little dreamy guy with his little heart. You want to leave the emotions out, okay? It's never a good idea to make a decision based on emotions. One big one is usually when people buy a puppy. They're buying that puppy based on emotions. They're not thinking about vet bills and grooming bills. I know my dog costs a fortune to groom. And so, you always want to leave those emotions out. You want to take your time, sleep on it. Don't make a decision right away. One thing that my parents always taught me is if you're being pressured to make a decision, you know, you're only going to get this deal for the next 10 minutes, so you have to sign this paper right now, walk away. Anytime you're going to be pressured into a decision to make it, you know, in a very short amount of time, you're probably going to regret that decision down the line. So you want to take your time, especially with big decisions, buying a car, buying a house, anything like that. You take your time, sleep on it. You want to look at how it fits in with your other goals, okay? If you're already saving for something or planning for something, and then an opportunity comes up for you to purchase something else, how does that fit into your goal that you already have? Is that going to set you back? Is that going to completely throw that goal out the window because you just put all your money into something else? So you really want to take that into consideration. Here's a big one. Do you see a pattern? Do you look back over your life and see that you made several decisions based on emotions, or you did it impulsively, or it didn't fit in with your plan? Do you see a pattern that you do keep making decisions that later on you really regret and wish that you didn't make? And you know, look at what you did when you made that decision, and you want to break that pattern. Okay? Any questions on that? Give me a smiley if that's good. All right, fantastic. Module 4, we learned about financial institutions and financial accounts. We learned about 2 types of financial institutions. We had depository institutions and non-depository institutions. It says it right there in the name. A depository institution is an institution where customers deposit their money. That's the main source of profit, is the interest on these. I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. The main source of profit is the interest that they collect on the loans to people, because people will deposit their money into the bank, and then the bank will take that money and loan it out, and then they make profit on that. So, you know, they might loan out money for a car loan, and they're going to charge, say, 6% interest on this car loan. You have a savings account at that bank, and you're earning 1% interest on the savings account. So that's where they're making their profit. They're taking your money, and then they're going to loan it out for a higher rate of interest than what they're paying for you, and everybody wins then. You're getting your interest, they're getting their interest. With depository institutions, these are FDIC insured for up to $100,000. So up to $100,000, if something happens, they're going to insure your money so you don't lose it. You also have non-depository institutions, and those focus more on just providing loans and other money management services. They receive their money from sources like mortgages, finance companies, and insurance companies. Okay? Any questions on that, or are we good to move on? We're going to get a little deeper into these. All right, types of depository institutions. The one that you're probably the most familiar with would be a commercial bank. A commercial bank would be something like Wells Fargo, SunTrust, TD Bank, any of those. Those would be commercial banks. They're most well known. They're funded through their deposits into checking and savings accounts. So most likely, if you have a savings account right now, you probably have it at a commercial bank. If you don't have it at a commercial bank, then chances are you may have it at a credit union. Credit unions are member-owned institutions. They're nonprofit, so they're able to keep their costs down, and they're able to offer higher interest rates on their savings accounts, their CDs, different things like that. Okay? There's also savings institutions. There's savings banks. These are stock-held savings and mutual savings. Then there's savings and loan banks. Those are, they receive their money from deposits, and then they make loans, and 70% of their deposits are used to make mortgages. So that's where they're getting their money, is off the interest on the mortgages that they send out, or that they give out. Web-only institutions, the one that always comes to mind is Citibank. Citibank, there's no physical location. If you have cash to deposit, you're going to go to an ATM, that's a Citibank ATM, and you'll deposit your money through that ATM check, so you can take a picture of them and deposit them that way. All of your transactions are done online. Because everything's done online and there's no physical location, the overhead is lower, and they're able to offer higher interest rates on their savings and CDs and different things like that. The risk of that, there's a greater risk of fraud and scam because of there not being the physical location, and it all is online, that there is that risk. So you want to be really careful if you ever do decide to use a web-only bank. Now, the other day I was doing this, and I had a student ask, web-only institutions are different than just doing your bank online because they don't have a physical location. Exactly. I do all of my banking online, but my bank actually has a physical location. So that is not a web-only institution. It's their online service. One of my students the other day asked what overhead was. That's a very good question. So if you were thinking that, I'm going to go ahead and answer that. Overhead is the cost that a company has to pay for things like their building, their land, rent, electricity, water, anything like that. When there's no physical location, that cuts down on the things that the company has to pay for. So because it costs them less to run their business, they're able to offer the higher interest rates, which will then bring in more customers, and then that's better for them. If we're good with that, give me a smiley. Fantastic. Now we have our non-depository institutions. One type is a mutual fund company. This is an investment company. They sell shares to individuals, and they pull the funds together, and then they buy financial securities. So they're going to take everybody's money, put it together, and then buy the financial securities. We also have brokerage firms. This is a place where they manage and facilitate the purchase of stocks, bonds, and other types of investments. So say you want to invest in the stock market, but you don't really feel comfortable doing that yourself. So you could go to a brokerage firm, and they will do that for you. Now, they're also going to charge you a fee, or they're going to take a commission because they have to make money too. Remember, it's capitalism, so they need to make a profit. So that's how they make their profit. Then we have life insurance institutions. These are where individuals can purchase life insurance policies, and they pay the insurance company premiums. So every month they'll pay a premium on this insurance policy, and that's how the company makes their money. They take those premiums and they invest that money so that they can hopefully earn a profit. And sometimes they also offer savings and loans. All right, give me a smiley if you're good with that. Fantastic. We've got 4 types of financial services that we see at a lot of our banks. One is savings. This is a safe way to store your money, but not only that, you'll earn interest. Occasionally, fees may apply. Usually what they'll say is you need to keep a minimum balance. If you go below, say, yes, better than under the mattress. If your balance goes below, say, $300 or $500, you know, it depends on the account that you're using, then you'll start getting charged a fee. But it's nice when you do earn that interest. It's not usually a lot of interest, but it's better than nothing, so your money is always growing. There's also payment services. These would be like checking accounts where you can write checks or you can use debit cards. Not a lot of people write checks too much anymore. Most people do use their debit cards, but occasionally there's a time that you do have to write a check, so you have to mail it to somebody. So these are payment services that you could have through a bank. I pay most things online. Most of my bills are paid online. It's just easier because I don't have to think about it. But you do have to be careful when you do that. I have found that sometimes the bank makes mistakes and they don't send out your payments when they're supposed to, or occasionally they just have glitches in their system. So if you are going to have a checking account and you are going to pay things online, it's always a good idea to pay very close attention and check your account often. Another type of service that they offer are loans. These can be short-term, long-term. They could be mortgages, car loans, education loans, anything like that. And then a lot of times we'll also offer financial services. This would be financial planning, tax assistance, or even investment advice. So give me a smiley if you guys are all okay with that. Looks like Alyssa might be asking a question. That can happen, absolutely, especially if you have it set up to go each month. If you have something set to go, say, on the 15th of every month, and the 15th falls on a Sunday, they'll most likely take it out the Friday before. So instead of being taken out on the 15th that month, it will be taken out on the 13th. So like I said, it is very important to always make sure if you're going to use that you do check it often. Okay, we have different types of accounts and investments. We have savings accounts that we just talked about. These are where you can earn interest and you can withdraw usually at any time. You will be limited as to how many withdrawals you can make. You can't just, withdraw money several times a day like you can with a checking account. There are limits, but if you have an emergency, you can go on in there and take your money out and you are earning interest. With a checking account, sometimes you will earn interest. Occasionally you do find a bank that does give interest or offer interest on their checking accounts. But you can also withdraw your money at any time, and there's usually not a limit. As long as you have money in the account, they will stop you if there's no money left in the account. Okay, we have certificate of deposit, or a CD. CDs have a maturity date. That means that you're going to put your money into this, and you're not allowed to take your money back out until a certain date, which is called the maturity date. These could be all different times. It could be, 3 months, 6 months, a year. It could be more than that. And usually, the longer you leave it in, the higher rate of interest you're going to receive. These are less liquid than a savings account, where you can go in and withdraw your money at any time. So if you have an emergency and all of your money is tied up in a CD, you will not be able to just take it out without paying some type of a penalty. We also have money market mutual funds, and this is where you invest money in different financial assets. And then there are bonds. We talked about bonds. These are issued by the government to raise money for projects, and you can earn interest on those. And then we have retirement accounts. Retirement accounts are important. 401k accounts are partially funded by your employer, but all the money that you put into a 401k is before they tax you on it. So say you're putting money into a 401k every pay period, you have a certain amount of money that's coming out of your paycheck and it's going into your 401k, you're paying income tax only on the money that you're receiving. You're not paying income tax on the amount of money. Say you're having $100 every pay period go into your 401k. You won't pay taxes on that $100. So if you decide that you want to take that money out of your 401k before you retire, before it's time, you will pay a penalty because you've not paid interest on any of that money. Okay? Now, when you put your money in a retirement fund, usually what they do is that money is then invested. So that's where you're earning off of your retirement fund. That's one of the ways that it's growing. We also have 403Bs. These are for employees of nonprofit organizations. So school teachers can have a 403B, and this has similar things. You can put money in it before taxes are taken out. Yes, you can usually, with a 401k, you're limited as to how much you can contribute each year. With a 403b, you're usually allowed to contribute more. So that's why it's a nice thing for government employees or nonprofit organizations to be able to do this, because you can put more money away for your retirement. And I know it seems silly for you guys to be in high school and thinking about retirement, but it's never too early to learn about that. All right, give me a smiley if you guys are good with that and ready to move on. Fantastic. Yes, start early. We've got the 4 Ps. These are the things that you want to take into consideration when you're choosing a bank. The first P is going to be product. What services do they offer? We just talked about all the different services. You may not be interested in all those different services. You may only want a savings account. But think a little bit ahead. Think a couple years ahead. You know, you want to think in the future also. Maybe you don't want a savings account right now. You just want a checking account, but maybe in a year or so you may be interested in a savings account as well. So you really want to look at all their different services that they offer. You want to look at price. Do they have a savings account that has, you know, a minimum balance and you're going to be charged a fee? What is the interest rate that they're going to pay you on your savings account? If you're going to take out a loan from that bank, what's the interest rate that they're going to charge you? So you want to look at fees and interest rates. You've got the interest that you're going to gain from, say, a CD or a savings account, and then you also have interest that you would pay for a loan or something like that. You also want to look at place. This is the location not just of the branches but of the ATMs. If you're the type of person, I personally do not use ATMs, but if you're somebody who likes to use ATMs, you want to make sure that there are some that are in your area. You don't want to have to drive too far to use the ATM. You also want to know that if you're the type of person who goes out without cash and has to use ATMs often, you want to make sure that they have a lot of them, because if you go to an ATM that's not part of your branch, you're probably still going to get a fee, but you're going to get a higher fee if you're not from that bank. So say you're banking with SunTrust and you use somebody else's ATM, you're going to be paying a higher fee. And I haven't done it in so long, I don't even remember what the fees are, but they're, I think, a couple dollars, so those definitely add up. You also want to look at the people, the customer service. If you're going to have an issue with your money, you want to make sure that there's good customer service. Here's a perfect example. This is so funny because, I mean, it's not so funny, but it's funny that this just happened yesterday. Yes, you want to make sure that they're knowledgeable, that they know what they're doing. My husband just made a deposit in the bank a couple days ago, and then I got online and I'm looking through and I was like, huh, I thought you made a deposit the other day. And we should usually see that within minutes. We should see it online. And so he came over and he looked and he's like, oh yeah, I did. So he ran and he got his receipt. When you make a deposit, you always want to make sure you save your receipt. And he looked, and here they put in the wrong account number. So they had deposited our money into somebody else's account. Now, had we not checked, we would have lost that money, and somebody else would have been like super excited because they had gotten a nice gift the other day. And they were probably disappointed. They probably saw it in there and then it disappeared. But now, when my husband called the bank, within minutes, that was taken care of. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that I look for. If there's going to be an issue, I want a bank that's going to take care of it quickly. They're not going to pass the buck. They're going to, you know, just find what the problem is and fix it. So go ahead and give me a smiley if you guys are good with the 4 Ps, and we will move on. Fantastic. All right, we have problematic institutions. These are institutions that we see often. We see commercials for them. We see them on the side of the road in different strip malls and different things like that. And you may not have known a whole lot about them. These are all, you know, there may be situations where these types of institutions could come in handy. But for the most part, they're not financially wise to use. A pawn shop, fun to go in. If you're going to buy stuff. But what pawn shops do is they give you a loan based on the value of an item that you bring in there. But they're also going to charge you high fees. And if you don't pay back the loan, they sell your item. So say you have a, I don't know, my husband talks about Gibson guitars, so I guess they're good and expensive. So say you have one of those, and you go into the pawn shop because you need money quickly. your electric is about to get shut off and you don't have any money to pay for it. So you've got to go into the pawn shop and you're going to take a loan from the pawn shop. You're going to give them your guitar. They're going to give you an amount of money. I can guarantee you the amount of money they're giving you on that guitar is not what the guitar is worth. They tend to be under $100. Okay, that I did not know. That's good to know. So they're going to give you a loan based on the value of the item, but it's going to be like a percentage of the value of the item. It's not going to be the full value of the item, because if you don't pay back the loan, they want to be able to sell that, and that's how they're going to make a profit. They're also going to charge you high fees, so that's how they're also going to make a profit. So you may get to pay off your electricity, but it's going to, in the end, cost you a lot more money than if you had just budgeted out the money that you needed and paid your bills on time. We also have check cashing businesses. If you have poor credit or bad credit, sometimes it's harder to get a checking account. If you don't have a checking account, you cannot go into just any bank and cash your paycheck. So sometimes you'll have to use these check cashing businesses. This is why you'll learn in Module 8. It's very important to keep good credit, to have a good credit score, to have a good credit report. You don't want to have bad things on your credit report. So if you don't have a checking account, you can go to these check cashing businesses and you can cash your paycheck, or you can just write a check and cash this paycheck. But they're going to charge you high fees. Now, if I take my paycheck from FLVS and I walk into my bank and I cash my check, I don't get charged a fee at all. Okay, but if I went into a check cashing business, I would be paying a lot of money to cash that check. We also have payday loans. 2 to 3% of the overall amount, which really adds up. It doesn't sound like a lot, and some of them charge more than others. It really depends. Payday loan businesses, this is where you get a cash advance. You know you're going to get paid on Friday, but you need the money on Monday. You're basically signing over your check to these people, and then they're going to charge you, again, high fees. And then if you don't pay it on time, you're going to get charged even more fees. So in the end, it's going to cost you more. All right, this one ought to look familiar. This was a question from 406. Rent-to-own services. These will target low-income families because low-income families will typically not have high-end electronics and furniture and different things like that. But we all want those things. So they can go into a business like this. Anybody can go into a business like this, and you will rent the item to eventually own the item. So you're paying pretty much, usually weekly, you're paying on this item until you have it paid off, or if you stop paying, then they take it back and you lose everything that you've paid on it. Now you're going to pay huge interest rates on these items that you're renting to own, and in the end, you're going to be paying probably about 2 to 3 times as much. The example in 406 was on the TV. And so, you know, if you are going to pay weekly on this, and in the end it's going to cost 2 to 3 times as much, a more wise decision would be to pay yourself weekly. The money that you would be paying to the rent-to-own service, pay it to yourself, put it in a savings account, and then when you have enough money saved up, you go out and you purchase the furniture or the TV or whatever it is that you wanted to buy. That would be a much more wise choice. Any questions about those? Go ahead and give me a smiley if you're ready to move on. All right, Module 5, we learned about taxes, and we are going to move right along, so we've already hit the hour point. Okay, the benefit of taxes. Why do we pay taxes? Where do our taxes go to? Our taxes pay for public services such as the fire department, law enforcement. They are very important. They have to get their money from somewhere. They are paid for by the government. Social services. Social Security for the elderly, unemployment benefits, public education. This would also include Medicaid and food stamps, different things like that, government housing, anything like that. It also pays for building roads, maintaining public buildings, upkeep of public parks and cultural sites. So it would be like national parks, it could be the library, different things like that. It also pays for public utilities such as water and sewer. All right. Any questions about what our taxes pay for? Go ahead and give me a smiley if you're ready to move on. Fantastic. Okay, types of taxes. These are the 4 types of taxes that we pay. We pay, this is probably the one that you guys are the most familiar with. We pay taxes on our purchases. We pay sales tax. So you go and you buy something, they're going to tack on some tax. I think it's what, 6.5%, and you're going to pay that on top of whatever the cost of the item was. We also have excise tax, and that is on gas, tires, airfare, and cigarettes. Now we do have some states that do not charge sales tax. Those would be Alaska, Delaware, Montana, New Hampshire, and Oregon. They all do not charge sales tax. We also have property tax. Property tax is on real estate, boats, vehicles, and sometimes furniture. Wealth. This would be estate tax. So when somebody dies, this is the tax on their estate. That's everything that they owned when they passed away. There's also inheritance tax. So if they leave that money to somebody else, whoever inherits that money, they have to pay tax on the money that they've inherited, just like an income. But you may gift up to $12,000 a year, and that money will not be taxed. All right. We also pay taxes on our earnings. This would be income tax, Social Security tax, and Medicaid. And the U.S. began collecting taxes, income taxes, sorry, in 1913. We're going to go a little bit further into income tax. We have 2 different types of tax systems. We've got a progressive tax system, and we have a regressive tax system. The progressive tax system, that means the higher income pays the greater proportion. You're not just paying a flat percentage of your income. There's tax brackets, so the higher income that you have, the greater percentage of your income you're going to pay. Then there's regressive, and that means that everybody pays the same percentage. So if you make $100,000, you pay the same percentage as somebody who makes $10,000. So type it in the chat box, or you can take some clip art and slap it up here. What type of tax system do we use in the U.S.? Do we use a progressive tax system, or do we use a regressive? I see one answer. Kenya says progressive. Alyssa says progressive or progressive. Tyler says progressive. Brianna says progressive. She's not too sure though, but she is right. We use a progressive tax system here in the U.S. Fantastic. Takia got it also. We use a progressive tax system. We actually use tax brackets, and that's how we determine how much you will be paying in taxes. So the higher income you have, the higher percentage you will pay in your taxes. This is kind of how it breaks up. The progressive tax system is the more you earn, the more taxes you pay. Tax brackets, these are categories of income based on your gross income minus your deductions. The income ranges differ according to filing statuses, which I'm going to show you in a second. And then here are some places that also use tax brackets. Australia, Canada, and South Africa. They also use the tax bracket system. Now, even though we are primarily a progressive tax system here in the U.S., we do have a bit of regressive tax system involved. That would be FICA. everybody pays the same percentage for Medicare and Social Security. So that would mean that that's actually considered regressive since everybody pays the same percentage. But if somebody asks you what type of tax system the U.S. uses, you say progressive because that's primarily the tax system that we use. All right, give me a smiley if you think that's all good and you don't have any questions. If you do have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat box. All right, let's move on. Here's our tax brackets and filing statuses. This is just an example. These change every year. So this is just one that I pulled off the internet. So say you make $5,000 a year and you're single, you're going to pay 10% for income tax. Okay, as soon as you pass $8,701, now your tax bracket just jumped up to 15%. And like I said, this is not really what we're using right now. This is just an example. Now, if you look, it's going to change. If you're single, you're in a different category than if you are married and filing jointly. If you're married and filing jointly, your income can go up to over $17,000 and you're still in that 10% tax bracket. Okay, now if you're married and you're filing separately, you're right back to filing the same as if you were single. And if you're at the head of the household, you can go up to $12,400 as far as this example goes. Okay, any questions about that? Give me a smiley if you're good. If you have questions, you can go ahead and type them in the chat box. Looks like everybody's good. We are going to move on. Okay, here are some terms to remember for federal income tax. The IRS is the government agency that oversees the collection of taxes. It's called the Internal Revenue Service. So when we're paying our taxes, they're getting sent to the IRS. When we file our taxes, it gets sent to the IRS. They are the ones who oversee the collection of taxes. Gross income. Your gross income, think of gross as being big. Okay, so that's going to be all sources of income. All sources of income except scholarships, disability income, welfare, inheritance, or child support. So any other type of income besides these will be in your gross income. If you have 2 jobs, your gross income includes both of those pays. All right, we have adjusted gross income, or AGI. This is going to be your gross income, this amount, minus specific deductions. Okay, there are tons of deductions. Okay, some examples would be the interest paid on a student loan, or up to $4,000 in tuition you could deduct off of your gross income. Deductions, you've got standard deductions. This is the amount subtracted from your AGI based on your filing status. Okay, your filing status was what we just saw in the tax brackets. So that's one way that you can do your deductions. The other way you can do your deductions, you can itemize them. That would mean that you kept track of everything that you can deduct from your gross income. You kept track of all year long, and then you subtract those from your gross income. But you have to make sure that you always have proof of that. Okay, and these are deductible expenses. When those deductible expenses are greater than your standard deductions, okay, you want to see which one of these is going to be greater, and you want to pick the bigger number. Okay, AMT, that's the alternative minimum tax, and that makes sure that people with high incomes pay their fair share of taxes, even though they may have a lot of deductions that could bring their adjusted gross income down into a lower tax bracket. Okay? Give me a smiley if you're good with all that. Fantastic. All right, a little bit more on filing status. Single. If you're filing as single, that means that you've never been married, divorced, or legally separated, and you have no children or dependents. Okay? Married, filing jointly, that means that a couple is married and they're combining their income on their tax return. and they may or may not have children. It really, that's not going to make any difference. Married filing separately, that means that they're married, but they're going to file as though they're single. They're going to file their own separate returns. One return will have just, say, the wife's income, and then the other return will have just the husband's income, and they may or may not have dependents. Head of the household is going to be a single individual who maintains the house for one or more dependents or children, and they're paying more than half of their support. Okay? And then you have a qualifying widow or widower, and this is an individual whose spouse died within the past 2 years, and they're supporting at least one dependent or child. All right, looks like Kenya is typing something up there. If anybody else has questions, go ahead and type them up. Otherwise, you can give me a smiley if you're good to move on. I know Ms. Goldstein, poor thing. She just wants to answer some questions. We always love the questions. Yep. Yep, because if you're single and you have children, see this says with no dependents, so you wouldn't be filing under single, you would be filing under head of household. All right, you're welcome. All right, preparing your taxes. Let's see, you've got 3 different choices that we discussed in the lessons for how you can prepare your taxes. You know, when you're young and you don't own a whole lot, you don't have multiple incomes, you know, don't have a whole lot going on, so your tax return is going to be fairly simple. A lot of people choose to, it's the good old days, choose to do it themselves. You want to make sure that you feel comfortable doing this, so you have to have a little bit of tax knowledge. And your taxes are simple. Like I said, you're not owning a business, you don't have a house that you're having to, you know, pay, you're not paying, you know, mortgage interest or anything like that. Like I said, you have to have some degree of tax knowledge. It does take some time, and you could make mistakes, and those mistakes could cost you. So, you know, you just want to make sure you feel comfortable with it. And most people that do file it themselves, they use a 1040 Easy. And they just kind of go through your W-4 or your W-2 is going to have, you know, box 3, and you're just going to find box 3 on the 1040 Easy, and you're just going to write that number in there. So another option, this is the one that I use, tax software. One example would be TurboTax. There's a few different ones, and yes, it is easy. And I feel like I'm very much in control of it. That's kind of why I like it, because I like to be in control. Yes, the questions. So with all the questions, it does make it easier. You can purchase the software from a store, or you can even download it or use it online. Sometimes you download the software, but like TurboTax, you can use it right there on their website. You don't even have to download it, and it saves everything on there. It guides you through the tax return. Like Ms. Goldstein said, they ask you questions, and as you answer the questions, it's just filling in the forms for you. This is another great thing. It files it electronically, so you get done doing it, you send it, and usually like within a week, you've got your tax return, and it goes directly into your checking account, so it's pretty darn awesome. I love it. You could still make mistakes, all right? So you do want to keep that in mind if you're going to use tax software. There's always the chance you could make a mistake. It could cost you money, or it could raise a red flag, and you could, you know, be chosen for an audit. Another option would be to hire a professional. If your situation is complicated, say you own a couple of businesses, things like that, then then that might be a good option to hire a professional. Investments, yes, will make it much more difficult and complicated. These do cost a lot more. It costs more to hire a professional, approximately between $50 for a simple one and $2,000 for a more complicated one. I do know people who have had to pay even more than $2,000. So, you know, it could go even higher than that, the more complicated it is. But they're more up to date on their knowledge. They know more about the deductions and the credits, and a lot of times they can get more money back for a return. Or if you're somebody who ends up having to pay, they could get that amount that you owe down more. All right, so I want to know which option you guys would choose. You can either type it in the chat box. You can use A, B, or C from the polling. A for 1, B for 2, and C for 3. Or you can use the tools and put some clip art up there. All right, I see somebody put a smiley. Let me see who that is. Let me see if it'll let me do it. Usually it tells me. No, usually it tells me who that is.
It's me.
Oh, okay. That's why it's not because you're a moderator. I'm like, why is it not telling me? All right. I see that Alyssa would use a professional. Brianna would use tax software. Kenya would use the tax software. Takia, she would use the professional. Tyler would use tax software. All right. Fantastic. Now, when I was your age, when I was fresh out of high school, I did it myself. I kind of liked it. I'm kind of a nerd, and I really like numbers. So, in fact, when I met my husband, I did his taxes for him too because I really liked it. It's fun for me. Even using the tax software, I don't tell my husband, but I enjoy it. All right, we have different ways that you can make your tax payments. Typically, we do like to make sure that we don't owe our taxes when we file our taxes on April 15th. We want to make sure that everything has already been paid, and then that way we don't have to pay a big lump sum at one time. Ways that we do this, you can use withholding, and that would be where every pay period, your employer is going to hold out a portion of your pay, and they're going to send that to the IRS. So if you get paid every other week you're going to have your taxes withheld, and that money is going to get sent to the IRS. And then at the end of the year, when you file your taxes, sometime before April 15th, when they're due, hopefully you're not going to owe any money. Sometimes you get a return. Sometimes you or a refund. If you paid too much, if you had too much withheld, then you would get a refund. The amount that is withheld is going to be based on your exemptions and your filing status, because it's basically predicting how much you're going to owe based on your what tax bracket you're going to be in. A W-2 form, that's going to be the form that you receive once a year telling you how much you paid to the IRS already. You're going to use the information on this form in order to either fill out your 1040 EZ or use in your tax software, or if you're going to go to a tax professional, you would give them that W-2 form. Now, at the end, when you do go to file your taxes, if you owe money, what you want to do is you want to adjust how much money is being withheld. You want to make sure that the next year you have more money being withheld from your paycheck so that the next year you won't owe as much. Yes, you'll usually get that form in January from your employer. I believe it has to be mailed out by a certain date, which I believe is January 30th. That's what it's supposed to be. I have had employers that don't necessarily follow the rules. And now a lot of times, a lot of the bigger companies, you can actually get your W-2 form from a website. You can just get it right there. So that's always nice in case your employer does not send it to you. Another way you can make your tax payments would be estimated payments. This would be more for somebody who is self-employed or they have a lot of investments and then they have other income, and they don't have the employer withholding their money. Maybe they have a job and the employer's withholding money out of their paycheck, but they also have a lot of income that they're going to have to pay taxes on from other sources, such as investments or another business or something like that. So they'll want to estimate how much they're going to owe at the end of the year, and then they're going to, most of the time they'll divide it by 4 and they'll pay it out quarterly and send those estimated payments to the IRS. All right, so give me a smiley if all that makes sense. All right, fantastic, moving right along. Audits. You learned about audits in Module 5. What is an audit? All tax returns are reviewed by the IRS, okay, but an audit means that they're going to do a detailed examination of your return. Okay, they're going to look at it a little bit more thoroughly. They want to see proof, different things like that. If you're chosen for an audit, you want to make sure that you have kept detailed records of all of your income and all of your deductions. You want to make sure that you have receipts, you have pay stubs, you have your W-2. You want to make sure you have all of that information. My husband owns a fishing guide service, and I have boxes and boxes and boxes of all kinds of stuff that we use for our deductions. So we have receipts, we have doctor's bills, all different kinds of things like that, and we keep those for several years in case we are chosen for an audit, because those are the things that they're going to want to look for. How many people are chosen for audits? Less than 1% of all the returns. As much as people get uptight about it, it really seems like a small number of people that are chosen for returns. But when you look at how many returns there are, that is actually a pretty good amount of people. Okay, who is chosen for an audit? The IRS doesn't tell us that. It could be random. They could just randomly choose people. Or it could be because you had unusual or large deductions. And so that put up a red flag, and the IRS now wants to see proof of that. Okay? Give me a smiley if all that makes sense. Fantastic. All right. 3 types of audits that we learned about. Correspondence audit. That's where you respond by mail. The IRS is going to contact you. They're going to say, we want to see these records, and you're going to most likely make copies of them and then mail them back to the IRS office. It could be an office audit, and this is going to mean that you have to go to a local IRS office and bring all of your things, and you're going to sit down with an agent, and you're going to go over all of the deductions, and they're going to do a very thorough examination of your tax return. A field audit is going to be where the IRS agent comes to your home business or meets you at your accountant's office. And they're going to do the same thing. They're going to want to see your proof of your deductions, and they're going to do a very detailed examination of your tax return. Okay, does that all make sense? All right, does anybody have any questions? If you have a microphone, you can pick up a mic and you can ask questions. You can type them up on the board, or you can type them in the chat box, whatever you would like to do. Just let me know. It can be from any module.